Hey everyone, and welcome to this ninth episode of my 2023 Natural Bodybuilding Competition Prep series. I am now 15 weeks out from my first competition, which is on September 9th. Jeez Louise, we're getting close. I mean, 15 weeks might seem kind of far away, but in the grand scheme of things, like it's actually seeming pretty close here. So, how did things go over this last week? They went pretty well. Not terribly eventful, which is probably a good thing. I mean, the less eventful a prep is, probably the better. I'm still pretty far out, so there shouldn't be anything terribly drastic going on at this point. At least I suspect there shouldn't be, and that's kind of where we're at. So I think the biggest difference is last weekend I went back down to doing three refeed days or high days of 2,700 calories versus the week prior where we tested having 2,900 calories for those three refeed days. And my low days, by the way, I have four of them. So my low days are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which are about 2,300 calories. And my three high days this past weekend were 2,700 calories. And then this coming weekend will be 2,700 calories again. So we went back to the 2,700 calories after testing the 2,900, and things are still going smoothly. So I got another low this past week, body weight low. I got to 185.0, so 185 on the dot. So we're still on a steady progression down as far as body weight goes. I think the biggest difference is in the physique that I'm seeing in the mirror, which is getting pretty cool, not going to lie. So I keep thinking back to past preps that I've done, kind of comparing and looking even back at old pictures. And when I was 185 in my last prep, looked a lot different than 185 at this prep. So I look like I'm in a prep now. Like I'm looking like I'm getting lean. I'm getting lines in some cool places, but I'm not looking like really flat and stringy and unhealthy. I look like a healthy, very lean 185 that's in a contest prep. So that's very cool. I think the places where I'm the most excited are my lower body really taking shape now. So like I'm starting to see some clearer and clearer lines in my quads, and even my hamstrings are starting to come out now. And I'm just starting to see some lines on the side of my glutes. Woohoo, finally. So I think that's going to be the last place where I'm going to be losing fat from, is really going to be the hamstrings and glutes there. And just the fact that I'm starting to see some lines from the side on my glutes is really encouraging for me, and very exciting that I'm starting to get to the places of fat loss where it's going to be the last to go. So I'm starting to get to all those fat deposits now. We're starting to lose in those places, which is really exciting for me. So yeah, I think we're on track. We're looking pretty good. And then as far as the upper body goes, it's looking leaner and leaner, but more full, I would say. And maybe I'm just getting a little overly analytical here, but I feel like the upper body is looking more full than it has in past preps, like just healthier, and my muscle bellies don't look like they're getting kind of flat and stringy the same way that they would have at 185 in my last prep. So in that sense, overall my physique is looking not too bad. We're out for a walk there. It's a park that we live probably about a 25-minute walk away, so we go walk there a couple days a week. We really like doing that on our rest days, Rachel and I. So we're pretty fortunate. We live in a really beautiful place, so we love doing that stuff when we're away from the gym. Yeah, and man, these Bulgarian split squats, sometimes they're tough to look back on because it's like reliving the discomfort of, for those of you watching this who have tried Bulgarian split squats with the deficit, you know that it's not terribly comfortable, very, very effective exercise in my experience, but get a little bit of the butterflies before each of the sets, because it's hard. It's definitely hard, but yeah, geez Louise. But there you have it. So gym performance still this past week has been very good. I am finding that it is getting harder to progress, like to add reps. Adding weight is starting to get slower and more laborious, more difficult. So I am finding that across the board, I'm not progressing as much or as quickly if I am progressing. So for example, a lot of what I'm doing in the gym now is I'm matching the number of reps that I did in the week prior. And then when I'm feeling really good, then I'm able to kind of get in another rep or two here and there. But more often than not now, especially this last week, maybe the week before, I'm starting to get to a point where I'm maintaining progress more than I am like adding reps, adding weight. But one thing I am trying to do, even if I'm not adding reps, I'm trying to keep the quality of my reps super high always. And even if I can't add more reps, I'm trying to improve the quality of reps from one session to the next. But yeah, as far as progressing goes, that is starting to get a little bit tougher there. I am getting a little bit more, I would say, and this is probably makes sense now that my body is starting to get leaner and the amount of energy that I'm taking in is not terribly high for me. I do find that I get sore a little bit more than I would otherwise if I'm not in a contest prep. So for example, my lower body gets pretty sore after I do those Bulgarian split squats for a day or two. So that's something that I need to be mindful of too, especially the next time I train, that I don't overdo it. If I'm still a little bit sore, I still want to push hard, but I don't want to go past the point of just soreness to like a nagging injury or something like that. So it's something that I know that because my body does not have the same kind of energy intake as it did if I'm like in an off season, I need to be mindful that my recovery might not be as good as well overall, because that's just the nature of taking in less building blocks to repair the more or less damage that's being done from the training itself. I know that sounds terrible, but there you have it. It's Jeff, my coach, he talks about like supply and demand. It's like you want to make sure that the supply is there if the demand is really high. Hopefully I'm saying that right, but that's the way I conceptualize it. So if the supply isn't there, you want to make sure that the demand matches that, and you don't want it to cross a line too far if the supply isn't there, because then you're not going to recover very well. It's going to affect your mood, your energy, and you'll end up in a little bit of a hole. So you want to make sure that you are pushing yourself, but you're not pushing yourself to a point of digging yourself into some kind of very uncomfortable hole. As far as energy levels go, overall quite high, mood quite good for the most part, like still feeling very, very good for being in a contest prep. I will say there are more times, more frequently, where I do feel lower energy. So yeah, last night was pretty fried. I mean, it was a long day. I work very long hours, but yeah, there's some times in the day where I'm starting to notice I get a little bit more tired than I otherwise would, maybe a little bit less sprightly, if you will, than I would if I'm like in an off season or earlier in the prep. But something that is going to happen when I start getting very, very lean is the energy levels are going to get lower. Like it's inevitable. Again, we want to mitigate it as much as we can, but there comes a point where you're kind of close to essential body fat levels. Your energy intake, my energy intake is not going to be terribly high, so I'm not going to have a ton of energy to. I'm not going to be the most sprightly person at some point in the prep, and I'm starting to feel more of a decline now in the past week or so than I have in other parts of the prep, which I think is normal. I think for me, the good news is it's still very, very manageable. It's not something that is like consuming, my life by any means. It's very manageable. So we're good on that. But I do need to keep in mind at some point, it's very probable that I am going to get a little bit more tired, fatigued. The performance of the gym is going to be a little bit more difficult, we'll say, more laborious. This is getting harder. So the leg press here, funny enough, this is the first session where I was not able to do an extra rep with the leg press or a little bit heavier. So I matched my reps from last week, but I wasn't able to do the extra rep. And this is the first session in this prep where that's happened. Hey, what do you know? So we'll see where we're at next week. I'll probably be a little bit leaner, but maybe I'll be a little bit more energetic. I'll feel a little bit more capable of producing force, getting that extra rep in. But yeah, it is what it is. This session, I trained as hard as I could, and I still could only do a hard 15 reps, even though I was aiming for the 16. I'm happy with it though. The quality of the reps were there. I did maintain, I did meet how I performed last week. I felt it where I wanted to feel it. I didn't feel banged up. Something I do, I've mentioned this at some point before, but when I go and do a set, especially when I'm in prep, but actually always, I do a little bit of some self-talk before I do a set where I give myself permission to stop a set if I need to, like if I suspect that my technique is going to fall apart, or like, you know, the structural integrity of my setup is going to kind of fall apart. I make it a rule for myself, or I give myself permission to stop the set early, if I suspect that if I push for an extra rep, my form will fall apart. Because at that point, it's going to be too high risk. Like, you want to push hard, yes, but you don't want to push hard to the point of causing some damage that's going to take days or weeks or months in some cases to heal, especially in, you know, at a time like this. So I take pressure off my shoulders and say, like, hey, like, train as hard as you can, but make sure that you don't train past the point of doing something silly. So I give myself permission to do that. And that's really helpful for me because, like, growing up, I was the kind of person that always just, like, pedal to the metal for everything, like, you know, blood and guts. But it's been very helpful for me to kind of go through that kind of self-talk before a lot of my sets to keep me safe and overall progressing much more because I don't injure myself along the way. So that's been really, really helpful for me, that little bit of self-talk. Honestly, I love these Viking presses. My favorite overhead press. It's better for me than the barbell because I get like a cranked neck when I have to like move my neck back and forth sometimes with the barbell, and you don't have to do that with the Viking press. Chest press is probably the toughest ones to progress with and to maintain progress as I get deeper into the diet here, but still going well. Anyways, guys, this pretty much covers it. Things are still going well. Again, energy is dipping a little bit. Gym performance, tough, but we're still maintaining. If not, we're still progressing slowly, so we're good there. And overall, I'm still super excited, very motivated. Very, very exciting to see the changes in the mirror. And I started my posing practice too, so gonna be prepared with my posing game when competition time. So very excited about that. I actually bought a mirror last weekend to help me with that. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Please feel free to watch past videos in this contest prep series. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.